Don't speak Hebrew, I understand Hebrew, don't swear, I will probably understand it, unless it's like really elaborate. So this talk is going to be in English, and it's going to be about Objective-C runtime. So unlike Tomer's talk, this talk has like really little to do with your day-to-day stuff that you're experiencing. It's more about how to be happy with the system that you work with. So let's begin. All the material that I'm going to talk about is pretty much open source. You can go to this link and download the latest version of Objective-C runtime and play with it and just poke around and like get to know the system that you're working with. So it might be, you know, a good thing to do if you're curious. And by the way, this is a great way to find out about those internal implementations that you shouldn't rely on. So what's going to talk without a history? So Objective-C started in like 70s, by Alan Kay, who created Smalltalk, which is the first kind of approach to objective-oriented programming. Then 10 years later, there was a guy called Cox and Love, two guys. One of them worked in Xerox that was raped by Apple. So they kind of took the Smalltalk and they created a set of C pre-processing macros to kind of work around lack of objective-oriented features in C. Fast forward, Next, the company that Jobs founded when he got kicked out from Apple, licensed Objective-C, made it work with GCC, which was previous compiler. Someone still remembers that? No? Good. Eventually, when Apple acquired Next, they got this not legacy, it's a good thing. So they got this thing and they wrote a new macOS using purely Objective-C. In 2006, just before like a WWDC, before iPhone was even announced, they announced Objective-C 2.0, and that's pretty much what we work with today. And it's funny to see how, how now these days, whenever new releases coming up, everyone is scrambling through new SDK trying to find like hints to new devices or whatever. So this guy at Apple mailing list done the same thing, and he found test that Apple engineer forgot to remove. So this test, they were pointing at such an amazing features of Objective-C 2.0 as properties, fast enumeration, which is like for each, accessors methods for IVARs, which is like private, protect, and all that. Protocols they finally got, required and optional methods, etc. And then the last thing, Apple said that Objective-C is not that fun. We introduced Swift. I disagree. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about stuff that actually makes Objective-C, that much fun to work with, that makes it so dynamic, and that allows us to, to do swizzling, to do all sorts of meta programming, and especially I want to talk about initialization of runtime and all the magic that happens, during that short process. So basically, libsystem, this library that is running in the background even before your application starts, it kind of fires the initialization of Objective-C runtime, and it has following steps. It's environment initialization, and that's your chance to specify some sort of flags to Objective-C runtime that might help you debug things. So you should start with this Obj-C help. It's in your environment variables in the application, in the scheme settings. So you should start with this guy, and it will print out all the possible flags that you can use. And if you're curious enough, you will see, all sorts of stuff that might help you. If you're writing a plugin, for example, there is a helpful thing that shows you how different modules being loaded in and on, etc. Then there is next step that initializes all the locks, because this whole story has to be highly concurrent and dynamic. There are tons of locks in place to ensure that. Well, not tons, it's really 3 of them. So it's selectors lock, all the runtime-wide application, runtime-wide kind of entities such as classes, methods, and caches. And the last lock is for working with a temporary list of classes as they've been loaded. Then there's really simple C kind of exception handling going on. And funny thing, again, it's like pretty much internal implementation details, but there's this method that is expected to be overridden by a foundation, okay? So even though that Objective-C runtime is supposed to be like completely unaware of all the other tools and frameworks, it's kind of like written in comments that this thing should be overridden by foundation. Then it starts registering dynamic libraries handlers, and first one is unmapping handler, and it's been registered first, so it gets chance to fire even if something happens during the loading of the class. So all it does is pretty much cleans up existing classes as they being unloaded and removes them from all possible lists. And then there is dynamic handlers for loaded images, and images in this case, it's when you load library or framework or whatever, it contains image which is set of all the classes, set of methods, and then other stuff. So this guy is listening to images as they've been loaded. It adds them to this list that you will call load methods on. So I don't know if you people get to use load. It's pretty much like your chance to kind of hook up into the your class being loaded. So all initialization that you want to do, this is the place. That's pretty much it about this thing. But there is one more thing. Like all this initialization, it doesn't really explain anything about what makes runtime so awesome. And what makes it awesome is this guy. And it says applause here, but whatever. Anyway, so this thing can be translated into, this is message sending, right? Message to an object, and it can be translated into this thing. I don't know if anyone's seen this before, but like this guy on the left, this is the actual hero, okay? And it doesn't happen like, it doesn't happen during initialization. It happens all the time as you run your application. So basically, everyone probably, sooner or later you will find this snippet of safe release. So I encourage you to use it in production code. It's convenient. I mean, it was convenient with manual memory management, but not anymore. So anyway, you have this code, and you can take it and rewrite it with message send, okay? So it's going to look pretty much similar, where you have your object on the left and selector that you want to send on the right, okay? And if you want to be a bit more type safe, you can enable this thing in your compiler, and you will be forced to cast particular types on this thing, on the objective message send, right? And basically, this is the quote that says a lot about runtime, okay? And if I would find this quote like way earlier, I wouldn't even look into the initialization part. This quote says that Objective-C defers as much as possible, like it defers all the stuff to the latest moment possible, okay? So it means that nothing happens in advance. And except for like really little kind of bookkeeping, this is true. So what is Objective-C message send? It's a group of methods. It's declared in message.h if someone cares to look it up. It's implemented in this .s file, which is kind of unusual. So the thing with this .s file is it's actually assembly, okay? This method's implemented is implemented in assembly, and there are like 7 different versions of this guy, including Windows. So like if you dare to compile Objective-C runtime for Windows, you'll get this guy. This is what it looks like. I don't know. Oh shit, you can't see anything. Doesn't matter. It's basically it's assembly macros. Okay, so why is it written in assembly? It's purely for speed optimization, because I don't know if you noticed or not, but if your application is idle, you will get around 10,000 calls a second of this guy. Okay, so it has to be like really fast to be completely untraceable, and for your application not to drop a single frame. Plus, this guy does tail optimization, and again, something that I learned recently, tail optimization is basically if you call function itself in the loop, you would create like frame on frame on frame on frame, unless you do this small smart trick when you don't change the registers and return values. Thank you for nodding, unless someone knows this. So like if you don't change the registers and the return value address, you don't have to create an extra frame, so you will not blow up with Stack Overflow. Thank you. Oh yeah, and recently they dropped support for vtables. Like if someone heard of vtables, so they dropped support for vtables in this guy. there used to be like a great deal of optimization with that, but after they switched to Arc, it's not needed anymore because compiler got quite smart with these things. Basically, this guy, the message send function, can take two paths, right? First one is fast path. There used to be check for ignored selectors under garbage collection, so if you would call release or retain or whatever else, it would be just ignore, it would return self and bail. Okay? Then there is nil, checking for nil, right? And this is like the famous point of Objective-C. You can send messages to nil, it's like all safe and jolly good. So you can do that, and it notices that you're sending message to the nil, and it immediately returns nil or equivalent for structure, float, whatever else you got there. Then the last thing it tries to do, it goes through the class implementation and it searches the cache that you have on each single class, cache of methods. Okay, so as soon as you call some methods on the instance, it will be put in the cache, and next time it will be instant. If it failed to find implementation of the method that you wanted to, you will take a slower path. And again, this thing happens once per unique selector per class. So if you call description on one class and then another class, like it will happen twice. But since then, it will be immediate. And basically, if this method is not cached, it will try to look up implementation on the class itself because it has a list of registered implementations. So for example, if you overrode a viewDidLoad of the view controller, you will get your own implementation for this method. If no, you will be still in view controller. So you will have to go there and to look for this guy. So if implementation was not found on your class, you will try those two methods. I don't know if someone played with NSProxy and the likes. This should be familiar. It's a resolve class with methods and resolve instance method. And then it will go through this forwarding mechanism that, again, this is like something that people should know from using NSProxy. So basically, it will ask, do you want to take over this invocation, this method, and these parameters? And you will be like, yeah, sure. And then it will send you the thing, you will handle it, will be good. Okay, so this is a funny note that I found on this technical note of Apple as debugging magic. It says, warning, Objective-C runtime allows you to uncover many private implementation details. You should never use them. But that's kind of like a lot of fun. And I mean, check this out. UI view controller, attention class dumpers. Yes, it is us again. Although swizzling and overriding private methods is fun, it wasn't much fun when your app stopped working. Please refrain from doing so. This is actually a thing that is shipped with every UI kit. You can look it up. It's there. Who can guess what it actually does? I tried. It does nothing. Okay? It does nothing. But it's just like, to me, it's a lot of fun to actually poke into this kind of things and just to check what it actually does. To slightly more practical aspects of this story, this library doesn't get enough attention and love, but it's really kind of convenient thing that it takes best from compiler and runtime, and it uses to enhance Objective-C greatly. It's really a good library. I will give a couple of examples, and like if someone cares to check it out, there's GitHub link down there. So first one is a Keypad. Okay, what Tomer said, it disappeared somewhere. What he said about trying to minimize using your string constants. This macro at the top, add Keypad, allows you to avoid that at all when you use Keypad, because it's like the worst thing. You rename your property, you forgot to change the Keypad somewhere, and like things stop happening or crashes or whatever. So this is how it works. You just tell it, for example, my class has a static thing called class property, and this is how to call it. Okay? Or even better, it can go through collections, and you can barely see, but it produces a string from this expression, and the expression is being validated by compiler because of the way macro works. Okay? Another really cool thing is on exit. Basically, throughout the life cycle of the scope, sometimes you have to do some sort of cleanup at the end, and not always you have like one convenient place of the code to do it, because this is like really trivial example. It's like try, catch, 2 lines, like you can do any cleanup you want at the end, right? But sometimes you have like branching logic, crazy stuff going on, and like at the beginning, or whatever it makes more sense, you just put this thing called onExit, and you specify what do you want to do when the scope ends. And when the scope ends, again, due to some crazy kind of stuff that the way they implement this macro, your code is going to be called. You should consider that it's part of the block, right? So that's the only thing that you should keep in mind when you write it, so like retain cycles and all that. But it's a really convenient way to kind of clean up your state. And actually, if someone used Mantle, the serialization thing, this stuff is in there. You can find it.
Sash, does that work with dialog? How does that work? You know,
It actually, the way it works, there is a scope, okay? And to be honest, I didn't have enough time to check how it works precisely. But there is a scope, and my guess is that variable gets deallocated. So I think so. Actually, I will poke around and like. The last thing is really cool. It's what we always wanted to put Neil inside of the collection. This is the guy, okay? It combines both from like the best things from NSNull and from Neil itself. So you can put it in the collection because it's an object, but because it's implemented as proxy, you can like send messages it's going to be Neil, okay? So it's kind of really cool, and if you expect to get like structure, it will return some sort of like, initialized zeroed structure. So this is kind of cool stuff. Okay, demo, live coding, fun stuff. Where is this? Oh, okay. Oh, it's tiny. Okay. By the way, another private detail. I wrote this plugin, like just poking around. I wrote this plugin that adds like ability to change the font size in Xcode, and it's so much fun to just decompile stuff. Like if anyone knows this thing called Hopper Disassembler, it allows you to take any binary and just like look at the implementation code, and it's quite dirty because it kind of reconstructs it from assembly, but it gives you like a lot of information about how, I don't know, NSRA or UI button is implemented, and it's just fascinating to see how it's done. It's, I don't know, whatever. Those kind of things turn me on. Don't tell anyone. Okay, so we're going to talk about this little thing that is a dynamic class creation, okay? We have a class that is called a pig. Let me run this to demonstrate. Okay, we are at the breakpoint. I cannot see a thing, so it's going to be hard. Okay. Okay, good. So we have this guy. It returns a pig, and hopefully you can see, it's an object of whatever, has some sort of address. When you pull the tail, it says oink in the console down there. Okay. Then we have a class called Spiderman. Okay. And again, it has like some methods such as shoot web, and it prints because I don't really know what sound like shooting web makes. Then it has a method that you barely can see. It's called add power with responsibility. So when you call it, it goes like sigh because like Okay, and then we check Spiderman is a pig. Okay, and we check by just the regular thing is kind of class. If it is, then I print nothing because Spiderman is pig. If it's not, I print not. Okay. We do that, and it says Spiderman is not a pig, which is a good thing. Okay, and then finally, we have SpiderPig, okay? And SpiderPig can shoot web, it goes, psst. It can add power and grade whatever, and you can pull tail, and it will go oink, okay? So it's passed from both worlds, okay? So, but the thing is that we know that Spiderman was not kind of pig, right? It's not kind of class of pig, right? So there is no way that they both have the same ancestor. So how come that this class, okay, implements these three methods? It can be done through protocols, okay? By the way, to prove that it's SpiderPig, we can do that. No, really, like quick look in debugger is like the best thing. It's like you can have so much fun. Okay, so how is it done? And I'm not going to go through the question why did I do it because it's kind of meaningless. Okay, but basically how is it done? Okay, so let's look at the SpiderPig method. Okay, I'm creating a class and I have my helper method that is called ZTS mutant class, okay? And it takes the name, which is SpiderPig, and it takes superclasses, okay? Spider-Man and Pig class. Then, ooh, shit. Okay, here. So then this part is where I'm adding implementation of quick look thing. So I'm just returning the image called SpiderPig. So it's kind of dynamic. So I'm just assembling this class on the runtime, and at the end of the day, I'm just returning this reference, which is allocated, really simple stuff. Okay, so basically what it does, it takes. Let's look at the mutant class guy. Oof. Hope that you can see this. Right. So what it does, it takes the list of classes, okay? It goes through them, and first of all, it figures out who are the superclasses, okay? And then it creates an implementation for each kind of class, because at this point we kind of alter the default behavior of the system. So each kind of class would not say that, for example, Spider-Man is a superclass of SpiderPig, right? Because the way we create the class is down here. Sorry. Oof, it's hard. Okay, here, sorry. I create a subclass of NSObject, actually, right? And I just register it with a name. So I need this is kind of class to override the default behavior of the guy. And basically, then I'm going through all superclasses, okay? I have like some helper method to get all superclasses, and I'm copying all the methods. So that's how we created a SpiderPig. And then if we're gonna take a look at SpiderPig.h, okay. You can see that there is no such class event because it's created during runtime. So what I've done, I don't know if you noticed or not, Spider-Man is just type def on ID. So that's why in the first demo, you see no pointer in here because it's an ID, right? So basically, that's pretty much it. Furthermore, if we're gonna look at Spider-Man, it's the same thing. And Spider-Man, in its own turn, has two superclasses, Peter Parker and Spider, okay? And basically, Peter Parker that's a real class, I promise. It goes only at power and with responsibility, and the other guy is just a spider. It has method shoot web. So basically, why would we do this, okay? It's a really hard question, I don't know. But trust me, this thing is being used inside of runtime in two places. First place is you probably use every day, which is key value observing, okay? You have your class, you have instance of your class, okay, with its current state. And at a certain point, you just come along and you're like, I want to observe this value on this object, okay? What happens there is that it creates a dynamic subclass of your class. It takes your instance, it takes a subclass, sets your instance class to the subclass, but at this point, subclass already has methods supporting observation, okay? It just overrides setter pretty much and says, before you set, call will observe. After you set, call did observe, and, okay? That's really simple. Second place that you hopefully use is NSZombies, okay? What happens there is that during the last dialog, it sets your class to a subclass called NSZombie. And all it does, it kind of notices the fact that like it's too late, that you already been dialogued, and it just explodes with this message that we all seen in the console, okay? Yeah, I think it's a sign. Yeah, no, I tried that. Anyway, so a couple more things, like there are going to be no slides anymore, but like a couple more things that I wanted to say. That, for example, the most trivial thing that everyone is doing with runtime is associated objects, right? Really nice thing. Be careful with it though, because I've seen this really big thread on dev forums where this guy, he goes like, I'm trying to set associated objects on this NSDate, and it crashes. Why? Because NSDate, NSNumber, tons of other classes, they have value classes, okay? They have single value, and they will optimize like crazy around it. So for example, NSNumber with number with integer 0 will always return the same pointer, okay? And when you're trying to set associated values to this guy, and you're thinking that you have like two different instances in your head, you're really pointing the same thing. And at the end of the day, you just might gonna have unpredictable behavior. Although this is really useful technique if you have your own class or you are inside of the category, okay? And then you want to have properties in your class. This is a really convenient thing to do that. Another thing inside of the category you cannot do inside of the category is to call to super, unless you use Objective-C runtime. Then you can actually call to super. Not recommended technique, you can try it. I shipped several applications with this stuff inside. I'm not proud of that, I'm just saying. In my opinion, to conclude all this story, this is more like party tricks, right? It's like, it's a bit kind of party, but whatever. Like, those are party tricks, okay? But I believe that you should know that you have this power at your fingertips to use it when you actually need it, okay? Because I can talk for hours about like what else is there and like how to solve different tasks with this stuff. I don't know when you need it, but when you do, you better know that you have these tools, at your reach. That is about it. Thank you so much. Right. I forgot to mention that the company where I have not put a single line of this code in the production is hiring. Okay. The company is called Wondermall, and we're doing e-commerce. And as a bonus, we offer relocation to our other office, which is in Palo Alto. And if someone is aware of like relocation thing, we're not doing it through H-1B, we're doing it through e-visa, meaning that you can relocate as soon as you want, not in next October. So if anyone is interested in working with us, and probably relocate if you want to, talk to me. My email is at meetup.com, I guess. Yeah, thanks.